The rooftop bar in downtown Los Angeles glowed under strings of warm fairy lights as the city skyline shimmered in the distance. It was the kind of place where laughter mingled with jazz, and every drink came garnished with a sprig of rosemary. The scent of grilled seafood and lavender candles floated through the air. Milana, 28, sat in a quiet corner, her back straight but her eyes restless. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not really. But her best friend, Stacy, had insisted. "You need to get out," Stacy had said. "Real people, real conversations. No more living through your edits." Milana, a food and lifestyle editor for an online magazine, usually preferred the company of books, playlists, and dimly lit cafes. Social scenes were not her thing. She was a quiet observer, someone who noticed the smallest details, the hesitation in a voice, the story behind someone's eyes. And tonight, her eyes caught someone. He stood by the bar, laughing with two friends, sleeves rolled up, nursing a whiskey with that easy confidence that didn't demand attention, but drew it anyway. His name was Kylon, though she didn't know it yet. What she did know was how he moved. Relaxed but deliberate, like someone who had nothing to prove and everything figured out. Milana watched him out of quiet curiosity. Then something unexpected happened. He looked back. Their eyes met, and he smiled, not the kind that flirted, but the kind that saw you. A few minutes later, he was walking toward her, leaving behind the safe circle of people who clearly adored him. "You don't look like you want to be here," he said with a crooked grin, "which means you probably have a story worth hearing." Milana blinked, caught off guard, then smiled. "I find my peace somewhere between playlists and pages," she replied, surprising herself with the honesty. He chuckled. Then were already 2 steps ahead of the room. What followed was not the usual surface-level chatter. Their conversation skipped small talk and dove straight into the things that mattered. Travel, fears, the weirdness of dreams, and the smell of home. Kylon spoke with clarity and heart. He asked questions that weren't meant to impress, but to understand. Milana felt seen, not scanned. What started as a chance encounter turned into something deeper over the next few weeks. Kylon became a presence that wrapped around her daily life like a favorite song, unexpected but addictive. He didn't just text. He sent voice notes at sunrise, wrote poems on napkins, brought her sunflowers because they looked like her laugh. He introduced her to hidden food trucks and vintage movie nights in open-air parking lots. He was romantic in the most thoughtful ways. Milana, who had built walls of reason and caution around her heart, felt those walls crumble one smile at a time. Her friends noticed a shift. Stacy said she looked lighter. Her editor told her her writing had become more tender. But amid all this beauty, a small sliver of doubt began to creep in, and it lived on Kylon's Instagram. It was curated to perfection. Every post was polished, artsy, and oddly cold. There were no photos of her. Not one. No tags. No subtle mentions. He posted from exact places they visited, often the same day. But the captions read like he was alone. Dinner for one. Peace over pretense. Solo sunsets. No distractions. His account was filled with self-love quotes, abstract reflections, and moody selfies. It didn't reflect the reality of their growing connection. It reflected a man who lived only for himself. Milana noticed but said nothing. Not at first. She wanted to believe he was just private, careful. Maybe he had been hurt before. Maybe he didn't want to rush into posting their relationship online. But late at night, lying in her bed with the glow of her phone on her face, she'd scroll through his feed and feel something cold press against her chest. One night, she saw it again, a new post. A dimly lit table for 2, the same restaurant they had dined at just hours earlier. The caption read, "Dinner with myself is the peace I needed." Milana stared at the screen. Her hand trembled slightly, but her face remained still. No tears, no gasp, just a slow tightening in her chest. The kind of pain that comes when you start to suspect you've been building a future in someone else's lie. She closed the app and opened the notes on her phone. There, she typed one word, proof, because something inside her whispered that love shouldn't have to hide. And if it was hiding, maybe it wasn't love at all. Days passed, But Milana couldn't shake the unease building inside her like an itch beneath the skin. Everything Kylon did still looked perfect from the outside. Morning texts, spontaneous voice notes, romantic gestures. But now, every time he wrapped his arms around her, she felt a question mark lingering between them. She started noticing the silences, the split-second pauses before he answered certain questions. The way his phone was always face down. The way he glanced at it with half-hidden urgency when it vibrated. She wasn't paranoid, at least she hoped not, but something didn't add up. And the more she tried to quiet her thoughts, the louder her instinct screamed. So, one night, when Kylon left for the bathroom during their dinner at a cozy Italian place tucked into a quiet West Hollywood street, Milana reached for his phone. She didn't go through it. She didn't even unlock it. But when she picked it up, just holding it, it buzzed. A message popped up on the screen from a name she hadn't seen before. Delilah Kissmark. The preview read, "Last night was worth every live face-blowing a kiss." Milana felt a surge of heat crawl up her neck. Her hand froze, then quickly set the phone back down, just in time for Kylon to return, laughing about the restroom playlist playing old NSYNC tracks. She smiled, or at least, her face did. Inside, her heart began to harden in places she hadn't known were soft. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay awake, her thoughts racing, staring at the ceiling while Kylon's arm wrapped around her. In the silence, she began plotting, not revenge, not yet, but clarity, truth, answers. She needed to know who Delilah was. She needed to know if she was losing her mind or if this entire love story had been a polished lie. The next morning, she created a second Instagram account, a fake one. The username was neutral at Art of Solitude, the bio vague. A few posts, sunsets, latte art, bookshelf corners, enough to look real, and then she followed Kylon. He accepted the request within hours. From this new lens, she watched him interact online. Not with her, of course, but with others. Comments from girls she'd never seen before. Replies that were flirtatious. Emojis that lingered a little too long. And posts that hinted at rendezvous he never mentioned. It was like peering into a parallel universe where Kylon wasn't a thoughtful, poetic man she thought she loved, but someone else entirely. Someone calculating. Someone performing. But Milana wasn't ready to confront him yet. Not without proof. And certainly not without control. So she changed her game. From her fake account, she began sending him vague, flirty messages. Things like, "Your words stay with me longer than they should." Or, "I wonder if you're this charming in real life." To her horror and quiet satisfaction, Kylon took the bait. He replied, not with a casual thanks or polite brush-off, but full-blown engagement. He asked questions. He sent voice notes. He talked about feeling understood. He used the exact same phrases he once used with her. It was like watching a recording of her own story, but played for someone else. Each message was a blade. Each response a confirmation. The heartbreak wasn't sudden. It was slow, surgical. And in the middle of it all, Milana kept smiling during dates, holding his hand, letting him kiss her forehead, because she needed more. She needed the full picture. Meanwhile, Stacy started to notice the changes. "You okay?" she asked one afternoon as they sat in their favorite bookstore cafe. Milana shrugged, swirling her cappuccino absent-mindedly. Just tired. But her eyes told a different story. Stacy leaned in, tired of pretending. Milana finally looked up, tired of falling for illusions. Later that week, Milana received a voice message from Kylon, sent to her fake account. His voice was soft, vulnerable. He spoke about how hard it was to find real connections, how he'd recently started talking to someone who just gets him. Milana felt the walls close in. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was quiet, insidious, and laced with charm. But she wasn't broken. She was getting stronger. She saved every screenshot, every message, every flirtation. She built a folder on her laptop called Just In Case. She didn't cry. Not yet. Her heart was learning how to armor itself. What hurt most wasn't that he lied. It was that he lied so beautifully. It had been 2 weeks since Milana began collecting digital crumbs, screenshots, recordings, timestamps. Each one tightened the noose of reality around the illusion she'd once called love. But something inside her had shifted. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was about dignity, about facing the mirror and not flinching, and about showing Kylon, not through anger, but through clarity, what he had so carelessly destroyed. But she wouldn't do it recklessly. There was still a part of her that craved an answer to the biggest question. Why? Why build something so intricate, so tender, only to burn from inside? Milana started visiting places they'd shared together. The bookstore where they'd once read Neruda aloud to each other. The quiet cliffside in Malibu where he first told her she felt like home. She'd sit alone there now, with her notebook in hand, documenting feelings not for healing, but for structure. Each entry was raw, truthful, not written for sympathy, but for understanding. And then came the idea. She wouldn't just confront him. She would give him a choice. From her fake account, she began deepening the emotional connection. She painted a version of herself that was seductive, mysterious, and understanding, but with one clear condition. She didn't believe in dating anyone already in a relationship. That was her test. She asked him directly, "Are you seeing anyone seriously? Be honest." Kylon replied within 5 minutes. "I'm seeing someone, yeah, but it's not serious. She's sweet, but we're not exclusive. I don't even know if it's real." Milana stared at her screen, numb and boiling all at once. Not exclusive. Not real. She could still feel his arms around her from a night before. Hear the way he whispered her name. Taste the wine they'd shared while planning a trip to Oregon. And yet here he was, unraveling their bond in a single text. So she made a decision. If Kylon had built their relationship on stories, she'd show him what it looked like when the truth was told like a story, too. She called Stacy. "I need your help," she said simply. "What's the plan?" Stacy asked without hesitation. They spent the next 3 days building a digital stage. Milana curated a slideshow, photos of their journey, video clips of their laughter, voice notes, the first selfie, the scribbled poem he wrote on a napkin, all dated, all real. Then she created a short film, just under 3 minutes long, a visual poem of everything they were, and at the end, she added the screenshots, the lies, the double life, the truth. She titled the video, "To the Man Who Loved Me in Pieces." It wasn't meant to go public. Yet, she would show it to Kylon privately. But the way she designed it, the message was clear. This was never about catching you. This was about saving myself from the illusion you sold me. The night of the confrontation came. She invited him to her apartment, the one he'd helped decorate, where their books were still stacked side by side, where his sweatshirt still hung on a hook by the door. He walked in, smiling, holding wine. "Special night?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Very." They sat down. She didn't say much, just handed him the laptop. "Watch this." He raised an eyebrow, playful. "What's this? Some anniversary thing?" "No, just watch." He played it. The room fell silent. The flickering light of the video reflected off his face. As the montage moved from romance to betrayal, Kylon's expression changed, from amusement to confusion to dread. By the end, he looked pale, stunned. "Milana, She cut him off. "No, you don't get to explain yet. I gave you everything. My vulnerability, my loyalty, my time, and you treat me like a placeholder." His voice cracked. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "You didn't mean for me to find out," she corrected. He sat in silence, hands clasped. Suddenly, all his charm, his curated confidence, the man who always had the right thing to say, was speechless. Milana stood. "You can leave your key on the counter." He rose slowly, but didn't argue. He placed the key down, hesitated, then finally walked out. As the door clicked shut, Milana stood still for a long moment. The silence wasn't empty. It was sacred. The days that followed were deceptively quiet. Milana didn't cry the next morning. She didn't smash anything, didn't call friends for endless post-breakup autopsies. Instead, she brewed her coffee in silence, curled up in her chair by the window, and let the stillness seep in. A silence that once would have felt lonely now felt earned, as if she'd reclaimed a space inside her chest that had long been rented out to delusion. But healing wasn't linear. Grief came in flashes. She'd be walking through Trader Joe's, reaching for her favorite oat milk, and suddenly her throat would tighten. She'd hear a song in a cafe, the one he once played with a lazy smile while they slow danced in her kitchen, and her hands would tremble. Healing, she realized, wasn't about avoiding the pain. It was about facing it without running. Then, something unexpected happened. 2 days after she'd shown Kylon the video, Stacy called her, breathless. "Milana, your video, it's online." Her heart stopped. "What do you mean it's online?" "I never uploaded it. It's on Reddit. Relationship thread. Someone posted it anonymously. No names, but it's your edit. And Milana, it's going viral." Milana rushed to her laptop. There was, "To the man who loved me in pieces," shared by an unknown account. Over 30,000 upvotes. Comments pouring in from women and men around the world. Some called it poetic justice. Others said it felt like therapy in film form. Dozens of users wrote things like, "This made me leave my toxic boyfriend today," or "This is exactly what I needed to hear." She didn't know whether to feel exposed or empowered. Later that night, Kylon texted her. "Kylon, I didn't post it, but I guess it doesn't matter now. Everyone's sending it to me." "Kylon, you win. Milana." She stared at the screen. There was again the language of ego. "Win," as if this had been a game. She didn't reply. Instead, she did something radical. She logged off. For a full week, she deleted all her social apps. She spent time painting, gardening on her balcony, walking barefoot in the grass at the local park. She rediscovered her mother's old recipe book and cooked dishes she hadn't tasted since childhood. She journaled, not about Kylon, but about herself, her desires, her childhood dreams, the parts of her she dimmed to fit into someone else's idea of love. One night, while watering her plants, she had a thought. What if I told more stories like this? Not just mine, but others. The idea bloomed. She started a private YouTube channel, gave a name that felt honest, Love Unfiltered. She posted the video again, this time by choice. Then followed it with a spoken word piece about boundaries. Then another about red flags we excuse when we're afraid to be alone. Comments flooded in. Women thanked her for giving voice to what they'd buried. Some men apologized in the comments, truly, vulnerably, for their past actions. Her pain had found a purpose. And yet, closure wasn't as clean as she imagined. One rainy afternoon, Milana received a package with no return address. Inside was a small hardcover notebook. On the first page, in Kylon's handwriting, "I didn't know how to love you the way you deserved. I hope one day I will learn, not to win you back, but to become someone better because of you. No apology, no manipulation, just a quiet reckoning." She closed the notebook, placed it in a drawer, and lit a candle. Healing didn't mean erasing the love. It meant seeing it clearly without the fog of fantasy, and loving yourself more in the aftermath. It had been 3 months since Milana last saw Kylon, yet his shadow no longer lingered in the corners of her home. Her apartment, once full of silence and aching memories, now thrummed with new life. Candlelight flickering over half-finished canvases, the scent of rosemary from her kitchen, the sound of her own laughter when she stumbled across a ridiculous meme mid-edit. Her YouTube channel, Love Unfiltered, had grown beyond anything she expected. It wasn't viral in the flashy sense, but it was steady, meaningful. Every video she posted, whether a story, a confession, a raw journal entry, was met with comments from people who said her voice had changed their perspective or, in some cases, their lives. One woman wrote, "Because of you, I left a 5-year relationship that never made me feel seen." Another, "Your story helped me finally understand why I kept falling for men like him." Milana wasn't a victim anymore. She was a voice, a mirror, a soft revolution. But even in her strength, she still had unanswered questions. Not about Kylon's betrayal, but about herself. Why had she ignored the red flags? Why had she needed to make herself small for someone else's comfort? Why had she equated love with approval? So one weekend, she left the city. She drove north along the coast, following the winding cliffs until she reached a small retreat center tucked away in the redwoods. No Wi-Fi, no distractions, just notebooks, pine-scented air, and people seeking healing. It was here, among strangers who share their own brokenness and rebirths, that she finally let go, not of the past, but the shame attached to it. In a closing circle on the final day, a man asked, "If you could go back, would you still choose him?" Milana smiled, eyes clear. "No, but I'd still choose me, the version of me that came out the other side." That night, under a starlit sky and a hush of ancient trees, she wrote a letter, not to Kylon, but to herself. You didn't fail because you loved him. You only failed when you forgot to love you. But you came back. You came back louder, brighter, wiser. And that's the real love story. Months later, she published a book, The Girl Who Unfollowed the Lie, a collection of essays and digital-age love letters. It quietly made its way onto bestseller lists. College professors assigned it. Therapists recommended it. But more than anything, it gave women and men a vocabulary for heartbreak in the age of filters and falsehoods. She never saw Kylon again. Occasionally, someone would mention they saw him at a cafe or dating someone new. But Milana didn't flinch. She no longer needed revenge, validation, or even apology. One evening, as she stood backstage at a local TEDx talk, waiting to speak about emotional self-abandonment and recovery, she heard her name announced. The applause swelled like a warm wave. She stepped out under the lights, not as a woman who once made a fake account to uncover a truth, but as someone who had made a real life from the ashes of a lie. She began with her favorite line, "I thought I was unraveling. Turns out, I was just unfolding." The crowd held its breath. And in that moment, Milana knew this story wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to every person who had ever loved too quietly, lost themselves too fully, and finally remembered the sound of their own voice. If you found out your partner was cheating, would you confront them directly or set a trap to catch them red-handed? Do you think creating a fake account to expose someone as smart or toxic